welcome. This is the Tiffany's Fitness Podcast, a podcast where I talk to coaches, athletes, and strength enthusiasts about strength, coaching, balance, and more. My name is Tiffany, and today's guest is John Greaves, but you may know him on the internet as Garage Gym Life, which is what his handle is on Instagram and YouTube. He has a podcast that I've actually been a guest on before, late last year, so you can check that out. And I'm going to be a guest on his live show this Friday, so if you're listening to this on the day it comes out, this Friday, I'll be a guest on his show then. But if you're listening to it later, don't worry, it'll be up on his YouTube as well. We talked about a whole lot of things, so I will let you listen and I'll be back at the end. So I know that your garage gym life, have you always been a garage gym person, or did that start like with COVID or something like that?
Oh, heck no. I've had okay, so I've had a home gym since 2001.
Oh, damn.
But I started working out in a home gym. Well, I had a home workout area. So let's just say it like that. So I started lifting weights in 1993. I was in college. And I've never had a gym membership because I started lifting in college. So I just worked out at the gym that students got to use for free. Then my first job out of college was at a public gym. So I worked there for 5 years. Again, didn't have to pay. All right. Then I left that job, got a job with a Fortune 500 company, and I was doing like insurance claims. And my schedule just wouldn't allow me to get to the gym. I tried to still go, and I was like, well, I can just get a membership somewhere else. And I was like, I never had a gym membership. I'll just start working out here. Because I knew a couple of guys who would tell me, every time I wouldn't see them, I say, where you been? And they're like, well, I still been working out, but I've got stuff at the house. So it was in my head. And then my martial arts coach at the time had a home gym. So I was like, okay, I'll just do what they're doing. And so I was living in a loft apartment, and I got two 70-pound dumbbells. This is back when everybody was doing step aerobics. So the gym where I used to, my previous employer had just upgraded to Reebok steps. Ooh. And what they had been using before were these wooden boxes that someone who belonged to the gym had just built. So I went out, and they're like, for nostalgia's sake, we'll sell these to anybody who wants one. So I went and I bought one for $5. So I had that wooden box, two 70-pound dumbbells, and that was the beginning of it. And then it just kind of developed from there. And then from there, I moved. I lived in that place for like six months, maybe a year. Then I moved to a house that had a little shed outside. And so I got some more stuff, and I put it in that outdoor shed. And it just kind of like continued to, kind of like go from there. And then I met my wife, and we moved into our first home that had a single car garage. So there you go. Yeah. And that's actually where I got my first power rack. So I was lifting at home, but I didn't have a power rack for the first year or so. Instead, I was getting like all this people who I worked with, people who I just knew, found out I was working out at home. So they started giving me like all the infomercial stuff they had gotten that they weren't using, that was just cluttering up their house. Like, hey, you want this? I know you want it. Yeah, all this junk, I had like an old weeder bench. And it's better than what I had before, because nobody doing floor presses on gravel is not cool.
No, it's not ideal.
So I had this weeder bench. It looks just like the one that Franco was using in pumping iron. And so then we got a power rack, and it was in our first garage gym. And so I've actually got some videos of me and our dog at the time. He's like walking on the treadmill, and I'm doing like I'm doing like an overhead dumbbell extension or something like that in front of the power rack. And then we moved into this house in 2008. And yeah. And so we called the company Garage Gym Life because when we started it, I was working out in a garage.
How do you differentiate training for like a sport versus training for just life? How do you feel that training differs?
All right, so I've trained for the first thing is I think that training for a sport is more likely to develop imbalances, because you're going to you've got goals specific to an event. I don't mean like some people say, well, I train powerlifting, but I don't compete or whatever. Okay. I'm not knocking them in terms of their commitment to training in that style. But what I'm saying is there's a difference, as you know, between saying, okay, on August 15th, I've got to be prepared to do XYZ under competition conditions with judges looking
Yeah.
at me, right? And so you're going to let a lot of stuff that doesn't, you ever read that book, Will It Make the Boat Go Faster?
No.
Okay. Do you know what I'm talking about?
No, not at all.
Okay. All
Oh,
right. So
wait, like, do
basically,
you mean like, am I doing it? Is it going to make me better at this specific thing?
yeah. So basically, there's an
Yeah.
Australian team. They're like a sailboat racing team, and they're like, look, we keep on losing. And so they said, we had enough of this. And so they said, basically, for the next year, we're going to decide on whether we do anything based upon whether it makes the boat go faster. And so that's the whole premise of the book, whatever. And they end up winning. So, yeah. So as a result, you cut out things that you say are non-essential, right? And so as a result, I think that you end up with some imbalances. And then, even if you say, well, I'm going to, for example, there, even like your supplemental exercises, your accessory work or whatever, it's still designed to not take away from your ability to do the thing on that day. And, like coaches will say, hey, look, you need to keep the main thing. You need to make sure that you don't like major in the minors. See, I'm like saying all these phrases coaches say. It's like, hey, because your goal is this, right? Well, what happened? But then when you're just training for general fitness, I look at that as more akin to what bodybuilding was in the classic sense. I don't mean getting on stage, but I mean like you notice that you have some sort of imbalance and you fix and you address it. So you do a lot more rotation. So like right now, for example, one of the things I'm looking at is I had an injury, right? And so I'm trying to get back to where I can completely supinate, right? And this is actually progress because I was like that, right? So some of that involves on the easy side, some incline dumbbell curls with my wrist turned out, some straight bar curls. So I'm in that position. Of course, some stretching and then a lot of stuff where I'm just getting the fiber, a lot of work just to get the fibers to loosen up, That's not something that you're going to see in a sport program. Like when are they going to program, curls like out with a straight bar? Like I can't think of a single sport where you need to, I guess maybe a strict curl, maybe where you're gonna.
I don't ever really program curls for any of the people that I
Yeah,
work with.
yeah. So well, strict. Okay, so the sport of strict curling, I could see maybe that's like the only one where you're gonna be doing curls. But as a general rule, yeah, when would you be doing that? Well, I remember Dave Tate, founder of Elite FTS, mentioned he's like the reason why powerlifters should do curls is he said, well, when else in a powerlifting program would you ever be in this position? He said, as a result, you look at most powerlifters, and when they're standing there facing you, their hands tend to be pronated because everything, especially they're doing a lot of bench pressing, forces you into that position like this. And you can do all the face pulling and rear work that you want, but the reality is, if I'm bench pressing 350 pounds this way, and I'm doing a face pull with 20 pounds this way, there's going to be a muscle imbalance. And so you need to kind of like, you're not going to, even deadlifting isn't going to reverse that, right? And so as a result, he's like, you need to have stuff in your program that's going to put your body in positions that your normal training will bias you into being in. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think that's just good programming is to make sure you're balancing that. And if you're that imbalanced, that's not good programming.
But that's what generally people are, because you also got to factor in real life too. When's the last time we had to reach back behind ourselves to do a normal act during the day? Everything is your keyboard's in front of you, your steering wheel's in front of you.
I reach back here all the time, actually.
You know what I mean? Like,
at the table.
You do a lot of this.
Yeah, my dog sits behind me in the car.
Oh wow, look at you! Yeah, I'm just like, it's like your normal. You like
I reach over the couch to reach things.
Look at you!
Yeah.
Now she's flexing.
Functional fitness.
Yeah, I know, right?
But I think that that definitely can be true where you have major imbalances, and you have to like, and you get really focused on what you're lifting for your competition. But I think when you're not actively preparing for a competition, you have to use that time to be really, really focused on making sure you don't get excessive imbalances, because also excessive
100%.
imbalances lead to injury. So then you
Yeah.
could, then you're
Now you can't do your
screwed and you
sport.
can't
Yeah.
compete. So I think that's you got to be a coach that recognizes
Mhm.
those imbalances are going to happen. Like I
Yeah.
know that they'll happen as you get closer to comp. You have to dial in. You have to stay focused.
Yeah.
Well, you have to make sure the boat's going to go faster.
Right.
But in the off season, or like in those weeks after competition, if you don't have something leading up right after, that's when you really take the time to like, okay, I'm going to focus on not doing that. Like for sport, this is a position that we're in a lot for those double bells. So we have to do a lot of things to open that chest up.
100%.
Otherwise, you'll end up like this. Like you see the legends category, which is the elder category of people. Sometimes they're hunched forward, and you don't want to be like that. That's not comfortable.
Well, that's the thing. What's scary is it becomes comfortable, and then normal posture becomes uncomfortable, and you don't even realize that because something is wrong, that your body is now in a position that it.
So
you don't even, you know how like people are like, oh, well, it's just part of getting older, and I'm telling you, like, I mean, I can still do stuff now that people my age can't do, but a lot of it is because I've paid specific attention to trying to regain stuff that I lost, because the sports I competed in were powerlifting and then combat sports, right? So so if you're fighting, everything's here. And in fact, they tell you, you want to keep your chin tucked, chin down and all that. Oh, look what my shoulders are doing while I'm doing that. So I just, I didn't swim. I didn't do the backstroke. So it's like, well, when am I going to accumulate the volume to open myself up? I won't. So I have to, if I want to be healthy, I have to program stuff in, to make me do it. That's one reason I like bench pressing, because it's like, okay, well, this is something that's cool and I can lift reasonably heavy with it. And it forces me to lift in a plane that I wouldn't normally lift in, So that's
why people also think it's so dangerous, because they're not trained in those positions, and they go, well, you're going to hurt yourself. This is dangerous. And I was like, it would be if you were trying to do what I do with a barbell bench pressing. It would probably be dangerous for you. Like, but I'm not suggesting that anyone goes out and grabs a barbell and tries to do reps of 99 pounds. No one's telling you to do that. And I certainly didn't start with that. So you have to learn the technique and build in those odd positions of strength. And then you can go heavy.
You know what's funny to me about that is everybody always, if they were teaching you how to do whatever thing they know how to do, they would never suggest that you start where they are.
No.
They would always tell you, okay, now look, start with this. And then everybody who's teaching you anything, how to tie your shoes, I mean, whatever, they're going to regress you. But it's just funny to me that whenever they see you do a thing, their immediate thought is like they're evaluating where you are now based upon where they are now, if they were to try to do the thing. Like when I do a Steinborn.
Yeah, I was going to say Steinborns are another one.
Oh God, they're terrifying. And I'm like, but some of that is a lack of, and I don't mean in the school sense, but I think it's a lack of physical education, right? And so what I mean by that is, when somebody tries to do a Steinborn the first time, if they don't understand the movement, they're trying to pick up the lower end of the bar. But if they understand the movement, they're pulling down on the top end and allowing the bar to come down with them naturally with gravity. So it's more like a manual labor movement or wrestling, like a single leg in wrestling or something like that. Yeah. And so it's a lever. And I think again it goes back to lack of physical education, because if you did the two things I'm talking about, like you do manual labor where you're used to picking stuff up on one shoulder, or you wrestle, so you're seeing the movement a lot. As soon as you see that, you're like, oh, that looks like this, because that's what I thought when I saw it. Like I never tried to pick up the end of the bar because I immediately thought, I mean, I grant you, James Fuller explained it very well, but when I asked him about it, but still, it was like, oh, okay, this is I see it as something that's kind of like a fireman's carry, and yeah, and so I just think that one other thing is that we're putting stuff out sometimes that is intended for as advice for other athletes roughly around our level, but everybody gets to see it, and so they may try it too. And then so it's like, where do you draw the line between saying, hey, this is something that's not for beginners, but how am I supposed to stop beginners from seeing it? And and then, oh, okay, hey, if you are an athlete and you've been doing, again, I'm going to use powerlifting because that to me is the one that's one of the biggest violators of this principle. You've been competing in powerlifting for a long time. You need to try something like kettlebell sport. You know, if you need something that's going to give you substance. So that, I think that's a great way to do it. It's like you have more than one sport, kind of like when we're growing up, you play multiple sports. Well, the multiple sports help you avoid imbalances because you're training muscle groups for this sport and you switch to the next sport. Now, as long as they're not very similar, you're going to develop well. But I'm just saying, like, if I'm looking at somebody who's been doing powerlifting for a long time, they're going to be in a situation where they're going to be super in super kyphosis like this, right? And I guarantee you that, first of all, they haven't scratched their back in 10 years. You know what I mean? It's been a minute, all right? They don't even use their back pockets anymore. It's like, okay, well, when do they get her? That's what I was talking about. I was like, well, I don't mean like you, but I'm saying like in general, when do people reach behind themselves at the same time to get something, you know? And that's it. So did I answer your question or just ramble?
I think the answer was in there.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, that's cool. It's in there. It's a conversation. So
just look for the answer. It's in there somewhere.
It's in there. Yeah, I mean, I think we're on the track. It's fine. Do you think that you're in better shape with how you train now than when you were doing like powerlifting or power building? I don't know about you.
Yeah, because so today, I would say that in some lifts I'm stronger, in some lifts I'm not as strong. So like my deadlift is lower, but my squat's higher and my bench is higher. But in terms of just things I can do, drop of a hat without being hurt and without needing a ton of warm up, yes, I'm 100% in better shape. In terms of just body weight, no, because I competed at the 198, and right now I'm like 225, so I am dropping weight. But in terms of just looking at me, no. In terms of capability and capacity, yes.
Do you think one is more important than the other? Like, do you think like that like specific strength is more like valuable than like being able to just do a thing at a drop of a hat without hurting yourself? Or is it dependent?
It depends on where you are in your life, because like if you're competing let's say I'm competing in the sport let's go conservative, every 6 months. I'm competing somewhere, right? Well, I kind of need to be in shape to do my sport, you know? If I mean, like if I want to be competitive, not just, hey, this would be fun to do it, then yeah, I kind of need to have the strength to do the thing. That's the whole point of like, will it make the boat go faster? And if I set a goal, hey, I'm going to break a record. I want to get I want a world record back or whatever. Yeah. But in terms of just life in general, I love the fact that I can pretty much do anything I want to do without suffering for it for like a week afterwards. And here's another thing that I think is cool. The way I train now, the way I trained in the beginning, it would be nothing for me to be so sore that I'd be like, get home, say, oh man, we had a good leg day or had a good training session. My back, all down my spinal rectus, I'm shot, right? I'm just laying there. I can't do anything. Okay. So let's say I'm outside with my kids. This is when my boys were young, and uh, a dog or a car, like one of them is playing on the street. Their ball goes in the street, and a car is coming. I gotta run over there to stop them. I wouldn't have been able to do that because I
No.
was sore, right? Dealing with the DOMs, and just what I had done to myself. Now I can get on the ground and play with my granddaughter. I can, I'm healthier, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that to me is very, very satisfying. I said so my wife and I just got back from Puerto Rico. We walked around Old San Juan, and I wasn't crippled the next day. You see people like, oh, I went on vacation, man. We did so much walking. Oh God, I'm recovering from it.
You're fine.
Yeah, I'm good. Like we walked
Yeah.
around, we went, and I mean like multiple walks. So like we walked in the city, so on that old cobblestone, we walked on the beach, and you know how walking in sand is like very, very challenging. Next morning, woke up, what do you want to do today? Let's go. I'm like, I'm good.
Pretty.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's important to like note when people are getting into fitness or like have been in fitness. Like it's okay for your priorities and your goals to change as
Yeah.
your life changes. Like the shape that I was in 5 years ago or 10 years ago is totally different than the shape that I'm currently in. And I'm not out of shape. I'm just in different shape. I couldn't run a half marathon like I could 8 years ago.
Right.
But I couldn't bench press at all. 5 years ago or something about that, I did my 10-minute 20K snatch set, and I did that. I don't think I could pull up a 10. I couldn't do that right now. Exactly. I could do it with a 16, but I'm also like able to do the heavy other lifts that I'm able to do. And I think when people are training, you can get very hyper focused, and that's really valuable if you're a competitive person, which I am. Yeah. But it's okay to like let your goals change and let your life help you. Like if you're coming from like being like a super intense athlete, but now you have small people that you have little kids you got to be in charge of, the way that your training is gonna change. Your lifts are gonna change. The time that you have in order to do those things are going to change, and all of that's just fine. Like it's okay for that to change as you age. And it doesn't mean you're in bad shape. It just means you're in different shape.
And the thing is, so my brother and I had a thing we call 70s big. And we looked at it like, well, what were the bodybuilders? Like the people who got on stage, what were they able to do, right? And you see like Franco Columbu competed in the World's Strongest Man and was able to get on stage, and he could still hit the heavy bag, and he could ever seen well, I don't know if I'm assuming you've seen Pumping Iron, but anyone who hasn't seen it, there's a scene in Pumping Iron where Franco's hanging upside down by his feet from a bar at I think at Muscle Beach, right? And he doesn't have gravity boots on. That's just the tops of his feet holding him there, right? That's very, very difficult. And I'm pretty sure that he didn't have like a thing in his training program, foot hangs, right? to develop my instep. No, this is something he could do because he did all this other stuff, you know what I mean? And I think that that's a thing to look at. Like, man, like, what I call is like, what's your walking around strength? And that's actually what I think it goes back to your earlier question is like, what's my walking around capability? So like, I could still run 3 miles if I wanted to today. I'm not going to run it as fast as I did when I was in the Marine Corps. But if I needed to run 3 miles for some reason, like right now to somewhere, right? I could do it.
Wouldn't be happy about it, but
no, I'd be very upset. But I could do it, as opposed to when I was in the heat of powerlifting. If you told me to run 3 miles, I couldn't do it. I wouldn't have been able to do it at all. I'm probably run to the end of the block. And then I just wouldn't have been, I mean, because the pain would have been too much. And I was severely detrained on aerobically,
Cardio.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I could do it now because I mean, and I don't run, but I mean, I walk. I do the 10,000 steps a day thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I know I can do it. If I were to do like, battle ropes or something like that, I could do it. It'd be challenging, but I could do it. And that's what I'm saying is like, for me right now is like raising my level of just walking around strength so that when that's higher, if I decide to specialize for my sport, let's say I want to go compete in a powerlifting meet again, well, my raw material is now better. And I'm closer to what my genetic potential probably is, right? As opposed to we're starting from here. And so within the training program, I can only get to here. Now, hopefully we're starting from here. And so maybe I can get to here, you know? And I think that there is some value for athletes, even strength athletes, in just the deload or the off-season, not deload, the off-season program where you just raise your, I hate using this phrase because people have started using it to mean something that I don't think originally was what it was meant to mean. Your GPP, right? It's like your general physical preparedness. Well, how many people who do GPP stuff are actually generally physically prepared? Whereas it's actually meant, well, I'm building my engine. If you're CrossFit, I'm building my engine, or, which means I'll be better at CrossFit, or I'm building my engine. So I'm better able to recover for my sport, but it's still your sport. Like if it's general physical preparedness, that means to me, what's the likelihood you can go work on a farm for a day and not die?
I mean, I think that's fair, but also I think if you're generally more physically prepared, your sport's going to be better. So like so it's like
100% agree.
Because like I can do, if I'm doing sport, like if I'm doing kettlebell sport, right? Doing heavy squats isn't necessarily going to prepare me for doing long cycle, but there will be some benefit if I build my quad strength. Right. It's going to be different because heavy squats are, a grind, and long cycle is explosive, but there's still, I think generally just being more physically able almost always carries over to making you better at the sport that you're competing in. I think pretty much regardless of the sport that you're in.
I think a great example of that. Well, I think that there's a great example of that is, so, normally when you're in high school or something, you play football. The football coach makes you run track, not just because typically they force the football coach to be the track coach too, and he needs people to come out and play track and run track. Yeah, he needs people on the track team. But because they're like, oh well, to make keep your cardio up, teach you to run faster. Even a running track is different than running in football pads, right? But that's what you would do. Or they say, oh no, well you need to wrestle because you're still,
grappling.
You'll build your aggression basically, right? Well, Russell Wilson, no, not Russell Wilson, Tua Tagovailoa was constantly getting hurt. Quarterback for the Miami Dolphins is constantly getting hurt, and apparently before last season he started doing jiu-jitsu, and he improved as a quarterback because he learned how to fall, because he's going to get sacked all the time, right? Well, he learned how to fall. One of the things he learned how to fall, his body became more resilient, and his spatial awareness improved, which is important. When you got a helmet on, you can't see anything, right? Well, your spatial awareness improves, where your body is in space, and you can start feeling the energy from the people around you a little bit better. Well, who would ever thought 20 years ago that you should tell a quarterback to do jiu-jitsu? Like, they're like, what are you planning on fighting? Someone? No. What if you get hurt? What if you get hurt doing jiu-jitsu and now you can't show up for this? You see what I'm saying? It's like, but look at the benefits. And I think that a lot of times that's another part of it too, is that we do a sport, we want to specialize in a sport, so we don't do other things because we don't want to get hurt because it'll take away from our sport.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when I was in high school playing, because I played soccer in high school, my high school coach very specifically told us not to play other sports. our season was during the winter season, so we like a lot of us prior to the rule would go snowboarding or skiing or something because we lived in Yosemite area, so we could just drive up to Yosemite and go
He's seeing y'all breaking a leg or something.
Well, a guy on the boys team, he broke his leg snowboarding, and so he was like,
and that was the end of that. Yeah,
no more. So I had like a different in like middle school and leading up into that, I had played multiple sports, and then at that point, I used just soccer year round, which is a different kind of being in shape than it was prior to that, because you get a lot of different, almost like odd strength doing snowboarding because of the balance requirements, the core requirements.
100%. And you don't get the overuse injuries.
Out. Yeah. So I think we really lost out in that aspect, because middle-aged man decided that he was right, even though he wasn't.
Because
he was a computer science teacher.
Risk averse. And I mean, so there's a guy, he's an older powerlifter named Andrei Milanichev, super strong dude. And they asked him like what he did when he was a kid. In terms, because everybody hears about the Russian training and how is this, and he said when I was a kid, I just ran around and did a bunch of sports. Like I did all of the sports, and as a result, he ended up developing in a more holistic way. And now, what do you see? You see kids like baseball. I think is notorious for this, where they do year-round baseball, they do travel baseball. Well, as a result, I just heard this yesterday. I don't even like baseball, but I just heard this yesterday. Yeah, I'm like, come on, man. There are other ways to make myself feel miserable for 3 hours. And then you might not have a dang real result, because what if it rains? Anyway, that's a
I mean, they do have Dippin' Dots at baseball games, and I love Dippin' Dots.
They sell it in a fashion that you can take it home. You can enjoy Dippin' Dots in the comfort of your house or somewhere else that is actually fun. But anyway,
the zoo.
My point is, you see that they're doing this, so you have kids who are not developing. They're not developing holistically now, and now you see like baseball pitchers can't play for as long, right? Mm-hmm. Like their careers aren't as long. Whereas you had guys who were pitchers, and I mean, even pitching is stressful on your body. These dudes have played for 14 years, or Cal Ripken played forever, right? Now you got guys 5 years and they're having their first surgery, or even before that. Like what happened? Well, because they accumulated so much volume because of travel baseball, because of specializing in wrestling. My kids wrestled. They wanted to wrestle year round. Well, it's the same muscles over and over and over. You can even tell somebody who's on the wrestling team just by the way they walk. You can just see them walking down the hallway and they're like this. Yeah, I'm turned to the side. They're literally like this.
No, but they lumbered.
Yeah, and of course they got the very pretty ears.
Yes.
Yeah,
those are that's gross. I don't like it.
You ought to see somebody pop one.
No, I'm good.
All right,
my brother did wrestling. My wrestling is also the bane of my existence, because my brother was weaker and smaller than me up until he wrestled, and then he could beat me up.
Started learning moves. Oh,
yeah. Okay. I was able to take him up until that point, and then he all of a sudden he had the ability to. It was terrible. I was like, man, I could take him out.
You're funny. You're hilarious.
He's now bigger than me, so it's unfortunate. He's Marine. I know you mentioned earlier.
Yeah. See that right there? Yeah. Part of a club where they give knives as gifts.
That's sort of
now. Can't have
that's
that.
On brand.
There we go.
You mentioned earlier about him learning how to fail, and I think that's also a thing that gets like really overlooked in strength training, is learning how to fail out of lifts, especially when like the lifts that we like to do are sort of more odd lifts. And when people see us doing the dangerous lifts, they go, well, what happens if you drop it? and I know
I
how to
let
drop
go.
it.
I
Yeah,
let go and move.
exactly. And I think that people, when they're getting into lifts like that, things like Turkish get-ups, doing bent
Yeah.
pressing, Steinborns, or any lift, knowing how to fail is like a legitimate skill to
Right.
have and learn and be taught if you're a coach. And it's super overlooked. So
Yeah, there's so much in there. First thing is that goes back to what I call, you know what, I'm gonna start calling it this today, as of today, physical miseducation.
mhm.
And you're constantly educating your body to do something, right? You're teaching your body constantly to do stuff. So, for example, I'm sitting in a chair right now, which is teaching my body to have shortened hip flexors, my calf, my Achilles tendons to be tight, you know, uh, things that wouldn't happen if I was sitting in an Asian squat during this interview, right? Well, which I'm not going to do, by the way, because of my camera positioning. I'm not interested in having an OnlyFans. So I'm just not going to do it. But I'm just saying, I think that it's funny. So we always talk about how like I remember one day I had to teach a kid how to climb a tree.
Mhm.
He was 12 years old. I had to teach a boy how to climb a tree. Like just
Yeah.
like just people our age, well, I'm older than you, but I'm saying like people who grew up the way we did. Nobody teaches
Not
you
on
how
the
to climb
internet.
a tree. Yeah.
You just do it.
You just do it. Nowadays they're gonna Google techniques for tree climbing,
Mhm.
or if they're even decide they want to do it. And it was funny to me that I had to show him like this guy has no idea how to climb a tree, right? And I think that that's part of it because your body naturally. So first of all, a lot of the old time lifts came out of the manual labor that they did, right? And so, and then the other part of it came out of the fact that they had these fixed weights. You get a blacksmith or somebody to make you something or whatever, but you don't have like, Alan Calvert didn't invent um a loadable barbell for until like the 1900s, I believe. And so you've got everybody in the 1800s is using these globe barbells,
Mhm.
these fixed weights, these solid things. And then you've got like the all the ancient means of lifting weights, like the Indian weights, the Garnal thing, the big, all the,
Gotta.
yeah, all the kung fu weights, all the weights, like all the kung fu practitioners say you shouldn't lift weights. I'm like, well, what's that thing they're using at the Shaolin Temple that looks heavy? All right, all those things were fixed weight implements. So um, you're basically going to start out with, can I pick it up? All right. Can I pick it up to my waist? Okay. Can I pick it up overhead? Okay. Now what else can I do with it? Can I move it around? Can I switch hands with it? And all the lifts that we know start to grow out of that necessity to find other ways to make this weight that is the only weight we have more challenging. Well, in the process of that, they're also doing gymnastics, acrobatics, all kinds of other things. Um, and so they have a higher degree of kinesthetic awareness than we do nowadays, I believe. And so I actually don't think that it's um I don't think that it's unreasonable for someone who is physically miseducated to see me doing something and have no idea what would happen if, because they're picturing themselves in that situation, right?
Mhm.
And like, well, what would happen if it falls? I don't know how you do it, right? And so like here's a good one. That I mean, I know that people who watch your show probably, that this is not something that they've had to deal with. But let's say somebody random is watching this because of the YouTube algorithm. All right. So everybody's seeing
Welcome.
somebody squat with a barbell on their back. Yeah, welcome. So everybody's seeing somebody squat with a barbell on their back. And we're all taught that you need to squat with the safety bars, right?
Mhm.
So when you see an Olympic lifter squatting without safety bars, and like Ivan Chikharov, who's doing the famous no squat, that's no belt, no wraps, no spotters, and he's casually banging out reps at 495, and you're like, what's this dude doing? There's no safety bars. What's he gonna do if he can't stand back up. Okay. But then you see somebody who's a weightlifter in that situation, they can't come back up, and others just like that. They literally just like that. The bar falls off behind them. They get up and they keep and they just walk away.
It's a lot less dramatic than I think people anticipate when they're like, oh, that's it. Yeah, I was
like, ooh. But then they're like, yeah, but what about all the guys I saw, and they're squatting and the bar crushes them. Oh, that's a guy who ended up bending over the wrong way. Well, then okay,
they failed badly.
Yeah. See what I mean?
Yeah, which is why failing is such an important skill to learn as you go. Because if you don't, then you're gonna get crushed or you're gonna get hurt failing. And like 100%. I fail a million times all the time. Like it happens, but you have to know how to safely get out. And it
depends on your exercise too. You have to know what that is for every exercise, and that's why. Not to cut you off, but that's why I think that the physical culture exercises are safer than a lot of the stuff that we see nowadays that are more modern exercises that we think are safer. Like I think the bench press is one of the most dangerous exercises. I mean, I do it, but I think it's one of the most dangerous exercises because when you fail, where are you going to go? You're pinned. Especially if you're doing it right, you're pinned to the bench. Where are you going to go? If the bar falls, you're not fast enough to get out of the way. You're just not. No. And even if you have a spotter, they are absolutely not fast enough to catch the bar. All right? Yeah. They're
not
just
like a
not.
Gymnastics spotter.
I mean, they're not because, okay. So the bars
like the gymnastics spotters, if you see them do the flip on the pole, there's some amazing spotters and they're throwing the thing so they don't like hit their heads on the poles. Have you seen those?
Yeah. I'm saying like in the terms of the bench press, so the bar's at arm's length, right? And let's say you're probably not going to fail at the top. You're probably going to fail when you're somewhere around halfway because you hit a sticking point, and your wrist is going to fail probably, and it's going to rock, and so the weight's going to be supported by probably just your thumb or something like that. And if it's 300 pounds, your thumb's can't hold back 300 pounds, right? So it starts to roll out of your hand. Okay, so think about that, and after this video is over, Google how long it takes for a weight to hit terminal velocity. So then put the weight that you're benching into that formula, and that's how fast your spotter has to be to catch it. And it's just not physically possible. So that's why you have spotter bars in the bench. But how often do you go to a public gym and there are no spotter bars?
I mean, I don't really go to a public gym. So.
I'm sorry. I forgot who I was talking to. How many times have you seen videos of people in these strange places where they don't even own the equipment and there's all these strangers around and they're bench pressing and there's no spotter bars?
I mean, half the time they don't have spotters at all. They're just doing it.
Like seriously. And then I don't care if it's 135 pounds. Would you like to have 135 pounds hit you in the lips and teeth? Good. Yeah. No. Like, no. I wouldn't want 45 pounds to hit me in the lips and teeth. So to me, it's more dangerous. But a bench press,
you don't want anything hitting me in the face.
But if I'm doing a bench press, like you said, if I'm failing, I basically let go and move.
Depending on where it is, if it's
I go where it
I know. And that's the thing, I think also exactly. And I think that's another thing as you learn how to do those things and you're going heavy and you're pushing your limits like that, you're gonna know when you're not going to make it. Like I know when I'm doing this lift, if I get to a point and I know the amount of rock I'm able to stabilize, and I can tell if I'm not going to make it. You just go, oh, this is my wrist is twisting too much. Oh, I've rotated too much. Oh, it's falling forward. And it is like a half of a second where you have to make that call. But when you've done that many reps to get that heavy and to do and to challenge yourself like that, you're gonna know and you're gonna be able to make that decision and go, oh, okay, it sucks. It's not like you're like, oh, cool, I failed, but it's like I know how to do it, and then I can go in and do it again and be better.
I also think that people who do the physical culture lifts tend to have, because physical culture lifts, another reason why I think they're safer is because they tend to have a built-in limiter. right? The degree of difficulty to just do the lift kind of limits the amount of weight you can do in a way that a lot of the more modern things don't have, because the more modern exercises tend to be exercises that have been adjusted to make it easier to lift more weight. It's not because they were safe. So for example, the reason why people squat out of a rack isn't because it's safer. They squat out of a rack because they realized that they could lift more weight, squat more weight if they squat out of a rack. And they're like, oh, well, who doesn't want to have more weight on their back? Or who doesn't want to be able to do more weight if you're into strength? And the reason why we bench on a bench instead of on the floor is because we found out we could do more weight. And the reason why we bench off a bench with uprights instead of doing a pullover and press from the floor like they used to when the benches first came out, like Pat Casey was doing a pullover off the ground and then benching, right? Well, then they switch over to, if you put uprights here, so you're lifting it off this way. Yeah. All right. So it's not safety. It's
triceps I have to do.
I can lift more weight. Well, excellent. Okay, cool. So I think as a result, because more work is done for you, I think you kind of end up not really knowing where you can and can't push yourself. And think about how often you see somebody and they know, and I've done this myself. I know I felt that twinge. Okay, I'll just do one more set and then I'll call it a day, right? Well, now that doesn't happen because I'm older and wiser. But when I was younger, I was like, yeah, because I got to grind. Also because I've got a meet coming up and I got to be ready. And my coach said I'm doing this weight, so I got to do it. And if I call it and say I can't do it, he's going to want to know why I didn't do all the attempts.
Yeah.
And I don't want to disappoint him. You know what I mean? So, and that's how you end up in the emergency room with your arm in a sling. And your wife looking at you like...
Sounds like a very specific instance that you are referencing.
I just randomly came up with that one.
Well, I think we have come to the end of our time. Where can people find you on the internet?
You can find my ramblings, number one, every Friday morning on the Way Too Early for a Friday Morning Show. And that is on the Garage Gym Life Media YouTube channel. We start off at 6 a.m. and the party goes until 9:45. It has been known to go longer, but we have a good time. I bring guests in like Tiff. She's going to be there as well. I bring guests in from across the
week that this comes landscape. Out, actually.
Oh, there you go. All right. So this is going to come out on like a Thursday or something?
On a Monday.
Okay, so it'll come out
on a Monday, and then
so you're
Friday,
watching this
I'll be
theoretically Monday through Thursday. Well, tomorrow. Well, then this Friday you need to check out Tiff on the Way Too Early for a Friday Morning Show, and it's going to be live because this is a fitness morning show. It's the only live fitness morning show. We'll hang out with you while you get your day started, and then if you're interested in getting a home gym put together, we also have videos like that on the channel as well. So I give you tips as my wife and I review fitness equipment that you can use in and around your home. Fitness tech, all kinds of different things to make it easier for you to hit your fitness goals, whatever they may be.
Sweet. Well, thank you so much for coming on. It's good to have you on my podcast. And now I'll go be on yours again.
Yay!
Thanks so much to John for coming on. We'll be chatting again very, very soon. So make sure you're giving him a follow so you can see us talk on Friday. And I'll have our previous episode linked as well. In exciting news, my Gamer's Guide to Fitness is now live and you can get it right now. It's hosted through Sambal. It's on sale through the next week. I will have that linked. It's a really, really great program. 10 weeks, Turkish get-ups, steel mace. Everything is video game themed. I'm very proud of it, so definitely go check that out. Also, my website is having a sale because it was my birthday. So everything on my shop is 16% off with code It's My Birthday. And that includes coaching packages as well. So reach out if that interests you. That's all I've got for this week, so don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe. And I'll be back real soon with another wonderful guest. Bye!